Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Age Verification, Legal and Community Implications webinar. My name is ClaraKitty. I am a CAM model and content creator of over 7 years and the moderator for today's Legal Impact webinar. This is a new part of the Legal Impact series hosted by your favorite adult attorney, Corey Silverstein. Special thanks to our media sponsor, XBiz, and our main sponsor for today's event, SpankChain. We're going to be going over how age verification is changing the game for the entire adult entertainment industry today. It doesn't matter what your role is, whether it's content creator, consumer, operator, these new laws are changing the worldwide landscape of online sex work as we know it. Being aware of these new developments and how it will affect you is incredibly important, and we want to make sure that everyone in the community is as involved and informed as they can possibly be. Let me allow my guests to introduce themselves. Savannah Sly.
Great. Thank you all so much for having me here. Great to be talking with you all today. My name is Savannah Sly, and I'm the founder and co-director of New Moon Network. New Moon Network is a philanthropic and capacity building organization here in the US. Pretty much our goal is to try and get more funding and resources to sex worker-led advocacy and community service groups in the US. So I'll drop our website in the chat. If you are part of a sex worker-led community group, either locally or nationally, looking for some support, we would love to talk with you and see how we can support your efforts. I'm also on the board of Woodhull Freedom Foundation and collaborate with Woodhull on a peer learning academy called Spokes Hub. So if you're an individual sex worker and you're inspired to do some advocacy, you want to become more impactful, you can take these free classes led for and by your peers. And if you graduate, you can even get some financial support for your important advocacy work. I myself am a sex worker. I've been a sex worker since I was 18, and I've worked both online and offline. And it's great to be here.
And then we have the lovely Jasmine James.
Hi, everybody. I am CEO of J Media Group. We handle content production. We also handle marketing, business development, creative development of all types. And I also am co-owner of Nerdy CMS as well. And we build websites for models.
Last but not least, Corey Silverstein.
Hi, everybody. Again, thank you so much for coming today. I am Corey Silverstein. I have been in the adult entertainment industry now for approximately 18 years, a little bit, actually might be a couple longer, but I'm very subconscious about my age, so I kind of lie. First, as always, I want to thank my media sponsor, XBiz. Of course, I want to spank. That was funny. I want to thank all of our friends and all the hard workers at SpankChain who agreed to sponsor today's event. Certainly appreciate your support and love all you guys for all the hard work you're doing. Savannah and Jasmine, you are two of my absolute favorite in this industry. I'm massive fans of both of the contributions that you guys have made in terms of your careers, in terms of the charitable work you've done, the philanthropical work you've done. The two of you are amazing, and I can't thank you enough for being here today. And of course, I have to thank our host, Clara, because this is actually the first of many that she's going to be hosting with us. And so really looking forward to see if Clara can stop me from talking continuously.
Well, on that note, I am about to ask you some questions, so you're about to talk for a bit. Let's get started with really the age verification updates. I think the number one question that most people have is what's happening? Like, what's going on with age verification?
That's an awesome way to start. And just so you guys know, we do have the chat open. So if you guys have, you're free to use the chat. We are going to keep the last 10 or 15 minutes open to answer any questions that you guys are going to have. So don't worry. We're going to do our best to make this as interactive as possible. Now, the main question, of course, is why are we here? Well, we're here, Clara, because right now the industry as a whole is under a massive attack by, in this case, individual states who have created numerous different age verification bills. When I say numerous different, it's because different states have passed different bills. Some have civil penalties, some have criminal penalties, some have private cause of action. There are various different states doing various different things. But we are here because ultimately what is happening is Big Brother, i.e. the government, is trying to tell adult entertainment platforms that before they will allow a user to see anything on that site, that they need to do some form of legal age verification. Now, this is an interesting conversation because for a lot of you who have been in this industry long enough, you know that this is not new. This battle was actually already waged many, many years ago, and we actually won this battle. Unfortunately, though, this time the individual states, largely motivated by a very far-right conservative push, is very much trying to push this agenda. In terms of, you know, the ongoing situation, Clara, is that unfortunately it's not ended. And despite the fact that legal challenges have been commenced against various states regarding these age verification laws, namely on a First Amendment basis, unfortunately, states are continuing to push these through. And it's almost every day now that we're seeing headlines that some new state has passed yet another age verification bill.
And I mean, you kind of answered my second question, which was like, why did this happen? So I guess my next question is, what is the status of the current legal battles? How many of these age verification laws are currently being tried to be passed, and how many have passed? How many have we tried to fight?
Again, all good questions. I want to start real quick by talking about the why, because and just I touched on the why, but I think it's important for everyone to understand what, you know, that there's a difference in between what state governments have been trying to push as their reasoning. Now, the state governments are going to say all day long that what this is about is that this is protecting minors. That's always their fallback, because they know that when you go on TV and you try to drum up support, it's very hard for a state lawmaker to say, like, oh, wait a minute, you don't support the protection of children. Of course, everyone supports the protection of children, and no one in this group believes that children or underage individuals should view content that is inappropriate. That's going to be a theme you're going to hear over and over again when you hear from some of our other featured speakers later. But ultimately, what this is really about, Clara, is that this is about controlling the narrative. This is about, again, a far right-wing attempt by the government to try to control what it is that's online that they deem to be appropriate. The fact is, this isn't about us. I don't believe for a half a second they can run around all day long and say this is about protecting minors. But ultimately, the bottom line is that they want to do everything they can to stop adult entertainment from being easily accessible. And this is yet another weapon they have found. Now, in terms of the legal battles, there are numerous different lawsuits that have been filed all across the United States. The Free Speech Coalition, I'm quite certain that someone in the group here today is either on the board or working with the Free Speech Coalition. I think I saw my friend Liz from Stream8. I think I saw her. She's a proud board member of the Free Speech Coalition now. They have launched lawsuits in Louisiana, Texas, Indiana, various other jurisdictions. But the ones that we have to talk about today in terms of an update are one, in terms of Texas. We've got a lot of action in the state of Texas because in an incredible piece of news, the United States Supreme Court has agreed to hear the appeal from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. This is huge news. This is a massive step in this war. And ultimately, what we're looking for here is we're looking for the US Supreme Court to put the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals back in their place, back into their own little box of craziness. Huge thing. This only happened within the last few weeks. I myself am representing the Woodhill Freedom Foundation and the EFF in that battle, and we are going to be filing amicus briefs in that battle as well. Indiana also got some good news because in Indiana, the FSC also got a lawsuit going over there. And in that case, actually, the federal judge did enjoin the enforceability of Indiana's state law because the federal judge in Indiana was smart enough to actually see that these laws are insane, and at least in Indiana, that there is a likelihood that the FSC will be able to win on the merits, and therefore the law has been enjoined. There is a ton of other states that have pending laws. When I pull my list up, unfortunately, it gets longer and longer and longer and longer. I'm actually scrolling to it because the list continues to go. But we've got Louisiana, Utah, Mississippi, Virginia, Arkansas, Texas, Montana, North Carolina. Indiana's been enjoined, so we don't have to count them right now. South Carolina, Idaho, Kansas, Kentucky. Then we have the other ones that are about to become enact. So Nebraska, their age verification law is going to hit on July 18th, which is 2 days from now. Alabama, October 1st, Oklahoma, November 1st. Florida is January 1st of 25. Same with Tennessee, and Georgia is July 1st of 2025. So to answer your question, Clara, it's a lot of states and the list continues to grow. But the hope here is that now that the Supreme Court has agreed to hear this challenge, that we're going to get this challenge heard as Supreme Court doesn't move at the speed of lightning. And, you know, it's going to take some time, but my hope is that some states will at least see that because of the fact that the Supreme Court is going to take this case, I'm hoping it'll pump the brakes a little bit on any more states passing these. But so far, unfortunately, the individual states still seem to be doing whatever they want.
So on that note, what is your prediction about the future of age verification online and in porn?
Sure. And this is a tough one because, you know, as a lawyer, people always ask me, they say, so Corey, what do you see in your crystal ball? So here's the problem. My crystal ball works like pretty well sometimes, but like sometimes it's just broken. So, you know, for all of you that are watching this in YouTube later on, and if I was wrong, sorry, gave it my best shot. But I actually am very confident that the Supreme Court is going to overturn the Fifth Circuit. I believe that the Fifth Circuit made a blatant error in the level of scrutiny that they utilized in evaluating this law. I believe that the Supreme Court has already ruled on this. I believe that they know that the Fifth Circuit is in essence out of control. And I believe that the US Supreme Court will actually slap Texas back and then send a message to all the other states that this insanity has to end. Now, that covers the United States in terms of age verification. Unfortunately, we don't only have to worry about the United States because we have jurisdictions like the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and various other countries all over and outside of Europe that are now also trying to create their own age verification bills. So this isn't going to be, you know, the absolute end of this. But in the United States, I'm very confident that, you know, we're going to get a win here. Now, is it possible, though, that that doesn't happen and we're going to have to be contending with this? Yes, that possibility exists also, which is why I thought it was so important to have people like Jasmine and Savannah here today to talk. I said Savannah. I gave her like an accent there. Savannah. I don't know what I was doing. Savannah. That's why it's so important that they're here today to talk about what the practical, you know, what's really going on the ground now that, you know, we have all these websites that are actually going out there and implementing age verification, what's going on the ground. And that's why, you know, these amazing people are here to talk about that today.
And I mean, Savannah, I want to ask, have, you know, you heard anything from, you know, our community, like reactions, these age verification laws, you know, how people have been feeling? Have people been super vocal?
Yes, people have been vocal, and I sense that the feeling generally is one of fear, trepidation. It is increased instability in our adult industry. I would say that as far as sex workers go, sex work being a big umbrella term for all different kinds of sexual and erotic services. Some of those are in person, some of those are online, some are over the phone. So typically people who work more online are the ones who are more concerned about this. But that we know that a lot of sex workers cross over into different modalities. So people who do in-person work also have an online presence these days. Everybody's concerned. We've heard it discussed amongst sex workers as a new kind of SESTA FOSTA. And for those of you who don't know, SESTA and FOSTA stands for the Stop Enabling Sex Trafficking Act and the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act. Those passed a couple of years ago, and those were federal bills that made it illegal for websites to have content on their platforms that was generated by users. So this is like your Facebooks, Twitters, things like that. They could have anything to do with sex trafficking. And sex trafficking was very broadly defined. So that could be any adult industry transaction. And that had a real chilling effect on the industry. Sex workers who used the internet to advertise online for their in-person services saw the shuttering of dozens of websites within a week. This is also the same week that Backpage got seized. And so what people are anticipating is increased instability, constant shifting of the terrain. And what we're seeing is people are trying to not put all their eggs in one basket. They're trying to diversify their forms of income. People are anticipating different shifts in the field. If all of a sudden it's harder to sell content online, some people will go more underground with their content selling. You know, they'll try and do it more one-on-one. People are talking a lot about get your client lists, have your own personal contact lists for your clients. People are also talking about like, maybe it's time to go start working in a strip club again. And we saw the exact same thing with SESTA and FOSTA. It had a real class stratification effect on the industry, which already suffers from class stratification. So people who are more privileged, more resourced, who have steadier clients, they can fare the storm better, whereas people who are maybe working paycheck to paycheck or have less access to those kinds of steady clients, they struggle more, and it makes it more dangerous for them to try and do their work. We saw strip clubs get flooded with a new workforce after SESTA and FOSTA passed, and that caused even more imbalances in strip clubs themselves. So people are bracing for it. They're trying to diversify, and they're definitely nervous.
I agree.
Have you
I think
noticed?
I
Oh,
went
sorry.
into, sorry, I just wanted to piggyback off of what she was saying. We definitely went into problem solving mode with a lot of my clients, geo blocking or integrating companies like Yoti to make sure that, you know, the people that are coming through, we can prove that they're of age. We've also been doing a lot of safer work content and having a lot of safer work landers that lead to their not safe for work page to try to help with that as well. So I think that's just been our main thing is, you know, how can we solve the problem right now with this looming over? Because I'm hoping, like Corey said, it's gonna go away, but you know, I think they want to have their hands in the industry a little more, and this could be another way to get some more money off of us. So it might not. But I know I've seen a rise in people using VPNs as well. So, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. So the more they try to shut us down, the bigger we grow. So
I love that attitude, Jasmine, and I love that you're making those tools available and accessible. There's also a sense of overwhelm with having to adjust to all these shifting technologies. And it's like, oh, now I need a VPN. Now I need geofencing. What is that? And so thank you so much for providing those tools to our community. I also want to give a shout out to sex workers who are being really vocal on this issue. I'm going to drop a link in a chat to an article that Domina Alexandra Snow wrote in the Columbian Dispatch, just like demonstrating sex workers kind of picking up the mic and trying to educate the public on how bad these laws are and how they're not just going to affect adult industry workers, but anyone who is concerned about privacy.
Yeah, and I
oh,
guess on
absolutely.
that, oh, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt people.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You're supposed to,
Um,
you're supposed to be.
everyone's talking.
Good.
I guess on that note, my question is, and really, I think this goes for all of you, like, do you feel that this age verification laws that the government is trying to pass is it really about protecting children, or is it something else? Smoke and mirrors?
No, you know, I really want to hear what Jasmine and Savannah have. Savannah, it's funny, I keep turning her like European. I don't know what I'm doing here. And what Savannah has to say, but ultimately, I do not believe, and this again, this is my personal opinion. I've been studying First Amendment law for a very long time, going all the way back to when I first took an interest in it in law school. And I can tell you that when I see state governments doing what they're doing now, and what I'm saying to you, Clara, is they're doing two things. Number one, they are completely ignoring the First Amendment. It's as though they're pretending the First Amendment doesn't exist. And the second thing is that they are ignoring the fact that this case has already been decided by the Supreme Court. We've already had this case, and the Supreme Court already specifically said that these sorts of age verification bans were not constitutional. And so you have to think that, okay, let's not put out there that, okay, all politicians are stupid. That, that they're not. It's not all say they're all stupid. They're actually quite smart. But in terms of what their real motives are, I have a very difficult time believing that the real ultimate motivation here is about protecting children. And we've seen this before. Savannah brought up FOSTA SESTA. FOSTA SESTA, they were claiming that it was all about, stopping and protecting people from human trafficking. But that's a load of bullshit, because when you talk to experts on the ground and you talk to people in the industry, they will tell you that FOSTA SESTA has done nothing but actually made sex work even more dangerous online because of this ridiculous law. And it forced people back into utilizing tools. See, the government, or the states in this case, naively think that, okay, the constituents are just going to eat this up and they're going to stop using porn and they're going to stop looking at porn and stop engaging in adult entertainment. But that entire philosophy is broken. People aren't going to stop. They're going to find other ways. You can keep creating these ridiculous laws. But to say that this is about protecting children, that's it, that's all this is about, I don't believe that for a second. Not for half a second.
Yeah, I don't agree with it either. And I think they're trying to shift the attention back to the industry, mainly because a lot of the pedophilia ring, a lot of attention was on the some of the most powerful men in the world that are mainstream, that are not a part of our industry. And I feel like it's an attempt to always kind of shift the attention back to us. Like, the reason why stuff like this is happening is because of the adult, not these powerful men aren't doing this, that are, politicians and whoever else. So I also think there's a little bit of that as well. So I think this is going to be an uphill battle, and it's always going to be a shift. If somebody else powerful that's outside of our industry gets exposed, they're going to come with something else.
I agree, Jasmine. I think this is going to be an uphill battle. I think it's going to be a continual battle. The adult industry and sex in general is always going to be scapegoated for society's ills, especially by people who are fearful about sex or see people exercising their sexual freedom as a threat to power and dominance in our country. I feel like when it comes down to age verification and whether people believe this will actually protect children, I think that falls into three camps. One camp is kind of the people that Jasmine was describing, where it's like using the adult industry as a scapegoat, either to deflect or because they are just anti-sex, anti-gender, anti-sexual expression and freedom. Then I think there are people in the middle who don't scratch that. And when I talk about people, I'm talking about policymakers generally. I think there's people who are not really scratching the surface. They're just sort of like taking the bill at face value, and they're seeing it as a great bipartisan effort. Our country's deeply divided. And things like combating sex trafficking and protecting children is something that both parties can usually pass legislation on. So I think they see it as expedient and beneficial to their political interests to move forward on something. And then I think there are people who are well-intentioned and are concerned about the supposed harms of pornography. It's like youth in our country are struggling in a very different way than they have in the past. It's, thought because of social media, COVID, and being online had a big impact on youth mental health. And there's also people who believe that the adult industry is nothing but a source of degradation and exploitation of women and children. And for those people, there are some people we're never going to be able to reach, who will never be able to be brought over. But I think there is a lot of merit to trying to meet them where they're at and address their fears head on, and to talk to them about the industry and talk to them about how the industry does regulate in all these different ways. And also to talk to them about better alternatives to the age verification laws being proposed. And for anybody who wants to have those kinds of conversations, Woodhull created a great tool. It's called Fact Check by Woodhull. Just dropped it in the chat. So if you're looking to kind of equip yourself to have these complicated conversations with people about pornography in the adult industry, that might be a helpful tool.
I had an idea, Savannah, a while ago, and I, for those of you that are watching today and know my personality, they know that I'll sometimes say some pretty direct stuff. And I actually have a challenge, and my challenge is to every politician out there that has supported these age verification bills, and I think that they should share their browser history. I would like to see, I believe that if this is the position that politicians are going to take, and that, then fine. Then you know what? You feel so strongly about it. Show me your browser history. I'd like to see what you guys have been looking at. And unfortunately, no matter how many times I've challenged various different politicians to do that, I was actually on a radio show in Tennessee, and I did the same thing. I challenged Tennessee lawmakers to come to my office, and I'd be more than happy to go through their browser history with them. Unfortunately, nobody took me up on the challenge because evidently politicians don't want us to see what they're looking at. So it's just a sign.
Precisely.
You know.
Interesting story. I have a model that I represent who's an in-person dom, and she works with a lot of top politicians, a lot of them. And it's interesting to hear you just say that, because I just hear the stories from her, and I'm like, yeah, a lot of times it is just all about, I want the vote, I want our party to win. It's like nobody's intentions are really pure. They know that we're not the problem. It's all just, just to kind of deflect, or to get the vote so they can stay in their position.
I have this. I have this incredible notion. I mean, this novel idea. Here's an idea. How about you parents out there take responsibility for your kids and what they look at online? No different than what I do. I have a child. I make no secret of that. My child is a minor, and she has very limited access. She can barely do anything online without me seeing it, and I stop her. And there are already plenty of technologies in place where a parent can responsibly watch over what the minors that they are responsible for, what they're supposed to do. It is unnecessary. It is completely ridiculous, and it's like using I don't know what the expression is. You want to use like a sledgehammer to put in a little tack nail into a wall. That's the government's approach. Well, forget about doing it in like any sort of common sense thing. Let's just put some laws in there, and some of the laws, and for all of you who are there today, are absolutely ridiculous. I've seen some of the stupidest proposals. For example, Ohio was one of the states that actually came up with the idea that what they would do is they would prosecute minors who misrepresented that they were over 18. So this was the geniuses in Ohio. They said, here's an idea. Let's lock up all these juveniles and let's put them in jail and give them criminal records for trying to look at something that the government deems as something inappropriate to the government, not to me. That's the sort of nonsense that we've seen. And of course, we've seen various other states, try to attach criminal components to this, to website operators that don't comply. Again, the notion is insane. The notion to me of, let's just say, okay, we're going to start throwing people in jail when it comes to what content they're sharing is just, to me, I feel like it's setting us back, and we're like we should all be going back to horses and buggies, and we're moving backwards in terms of evolution, not forwards.
That's a great point, Corey, and it actually dovetails with something that Jasmine mentioned that I want to kind of expand upon. Jasmine, you were mentioning that you work with an in-person professional dominatrix who works with a bunch of high-powered clients who are in the legislature. I think a lot of in-person sex workers and online sex workers also have that experience. This makes me think of Stormy Daniels and why Stormy Daniels was such a threat to President Trump, and why sex workers are seen as a threat, and sexual freedom is seen as a threat, because we have a window into people's actual lives and actual interests, because they can't help but interface with us. People of all political stripes have sexual desires, and they're going to get them met. And so Stormy Daniels is a great example of the threat that sex workers pose to men in power, specifically, especially men who are not exactly champions of sexual freedom and human rights, because we have access to them, we have dirt on them. And I think that that's one reason that we are kept under such a high degree of control and oppression in this country. And Corey, they are trying to blast us back. I hope that everybody on this Zoom call knows about Project 2025. It's been out in the open for a long time. Age verification, SESTA FOSTA, it's kind of just the beginning. If we get Trump in office or another Republican this round, Project 2025 is a playbook to implement a wide variety of extremist conservative policies and values, including banning pornography, banning contraception, abortion. This would be federal. So all of these issues that we're dealing with, I feel like the adult industry is a scapegoat that is easy for Democrats and Republicans to go after. But the issue there is that Democrats are not seeing how this is a boon to extremist conservative causes, and that they're leaving us behind at, you know, the detriment to the whole country potentially.
You're so right. And it's, I'm so happy that you said that, because you actually pointed something out that, a lot of people, and I know it's election time. We're doing this live. And for those of you on YouTube, I'm not sure when you're going to be watching it, but as we're doing this live, we are in election season. Things are crazy. Not going to go down that path, because we don't need to turn this into a political conversation. But what you did say that's so important, it's not just it's not just the Republicans. And that's what oftentimes people kind of mistake. It's all politicians that need to get a grasp and understand what the hell's going on here. And I give huge kudos to the governor of Arizona. The governor of Arizona, for those of you that didn't know, she was the only governor out of the entire 50 states that had an age verification bill that had the balls to say, this is stupid. I understand what you guys are trying to do, but you cannot do this by walking all over and just crapping and ignoring the First Amendment. That's a politician. That's someone who, despite the fact that maybe even maybe to some degree in her personal life, I don't know this for a fact, but she did believe that to some degree there needed to be, some level of age verification. She was strong enough as a politician to say, I took an oath when I came into office, and that oath is to protect the United States Constitution. And she chose to say, I'm putting my oath ahead of whoever's pushing me, whatever. And that's not what we're seeing in other states, Savannah. What we're seeing in other states is we're seeing politicians on both sides of the aisle bending over to big donors, to far right-wing advocacy groups. Apparently, I can no longer speak.
And I guess like the next question really is, I mean, Savannah, do you feel like sex workers should be worried about the platforms they operate on? Is New Moon
Always.
giving advice to creators?
Yeah, we should always be worried about our platforms, because society doesn't necessarily recognize that sex workers are canaries in the coal mine for a litany of human rights violations. Age verification just being a trending one that we're taking a look at. New Moon doesn't give advice to sex workers on how to conduct their business, but we're connected to sex workers, and that we're trying to support sex workers who are being brave and either serving their communities through direct services or trying to advocate. So we have an ear to the ground, but we say, get active. There's a saying that I heard a long time ago as an organizer, which is, if you don't do politics, politics will do you. And I think that there is a desire to kind of put your head in the sand and just kind of skate and see how it goes. And if it is overwhelming, that's understandable. But if you have the bandwidth to take action, contact Free Speech Coalition, so hop onto Woodhull's newsletter, take a Spokes Hub class, check out that op-ed that Domina Alexandra Snow wrote, and figure out how you can contribute to this, because we are powerful. People need us. They don't want to acknowledge that they need us, but they do. And we have always been around. We will always be around. It's a matter of how many hits we take, while trying to just like exist and conduct our business. So get active.
I think that's the key, that what you just said, like people like need sex workers, but they don't want to admit that. And I think with social media coming about and voices getting bigger, and people can speak out against stuff and expose people, I think that now it's like they want to try to push down even more on that. Because I notice it even with, models that I have that are so shadow banned, and their account has always been PG. There is somebody at Meta that does not like you, or you know something about them. Maybe you were that was your client, or something like that. But a lot of times it just doesn't make sense. And luckily I do have certain connections, but there's certain ones I can't override. But I think it's like the safer work is important, but I'm always encouraging models. I'm like, you need backup accounts. You need to make sure you're keeping everything as clean as possible, because unfortunately with mainstream models, they're able to be naked and show their nipples. I always tell them, no, we're not doing that. Like, even though they said you can do that now, no, we don't. You can't risk it, because there's always a target on that account specifically.
The hypocrisy is really enraging, and I'm glad that you have some connections, Jasmine, to help people navigate shadow banning, which is a total injustice. It's extreme censorship, and it's really unfair. Something else that I would like to recommend to people is talk to your clients, talk to your fans. I personally believe that the general person living in the United States isn't aware of age verification laws until their favorite porn site is no longer accessible to them. This is not an issue that everyday people are tracking. And also, there are more sex workers than ever since the pandemic. Pandemic hit, a lot of us, pretty much all of us, were stuck at home. People needed a way to make money, and they turned to the internet and they started taking their clothes off and trying to make a buck. And most of those people didn't make a significant amount of money. A lot of them may not have stuck with it for more than a few weeks or a month. But all those people now carry a scarlet letter that could result in job discrimination or losing custody of their kids or affecting their international travel. But what we know is that the average person in the United States they're aware of phrases like OnlyFans. A lot of people have engaged in online adult media at this point, either creating it or consuming it. And I'm really inspired by the woman who ran for Democratic office in Virginia, Susanna Gibson, who she had made live sex videos on a streaming platform with her husband to make money. And then she ran for office in Virginia. Republicans caught wind of her experience in the adult industry and they tried to slander her with it. She didn't back down from it. She didn't focus on it. She didn't win, but she didn't lose by much. And I think that that is incredibly encouraging that in Virginia, which is a pretty conservative state, voters were not terribly turned off by Susanna Gibson's past in the adult industry. Now, granted, she was performing sex with her husband, which might be different than performing sex with other partners or other people you work with. But I think that that's something we should look at. It's kind of a barometer that I've had my eye on.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one thing that I always tell models that I work with is, I'm like, show your personality. I want to see all of you. Let the world see all of you, because, you know, you're a well-rounded person as well. Like it's normal. I want to normalize an adult worker because it is normal. It's the oldest job in the world. So that I forgot about that story, but thank you for bringing that up, because yeah, that was pretty impressive and she handled it well.
Very well.
And Jasmine, I mean, you kind of talked about this earlier and you guys were kind of talking about it now, but you know, you did mention that you've been seeing from creators that you work with, you've been seeing more requests for safe for work content, and also that you've been giving them suggestions. Is there anything else that you would suggest to creators that you might not have?
It's mainly been with businesses that I work with. We've been heavily focused on doing safer work. And then also we've been realizing that our accounts on social media would get dinged if we have our adult link up there, or if they have a certain link up there. So, you know, a lot of people use like Linktree and stuff like that. But also if you create safe for work links and then have it redirected after like 10 seconds, that helps. That helps to keep the account off the radar and you're still funneling traffic to where it needs to be. And you can still do a prompt with, you know, after it redirects, are you 18 plus? You can still do all those things to make sure, you know, the people are opting into that.
And for like the websites that you work with, when you're assisting performers in creating, what third-party age verification services are you utilizing? And can you talk about the implementation process?
The one that I've used recently was Yoti, and they were amazing. It was very easy integration. They have an API, really easy to read. I'm not a developer, and I was even able to skim it a tad bit. And it takes maybe about 2 days to implement once you kind of go over everything. And it's pretty affordable. I think it was around $1.15 or a pound, converting to obviously England money. But yeah, it was a pretty easy and smooth. A big thing that I tell my clients, because a couple of them were like, well, we're going to take this on our own. And I'm like, no, you don't know how to read IDs that are coming from, you know, Colombia or here and there or whatever. So let's let the professionals do it in the states that it's needed for now, so we don't get tied up in any mess. So yeah, Yodi's been pretty great, easy to work with, easy to implement.
That's one of the issues with many of these laws, and this is another thing that's been coming up, is that these laws are so ambiguous and vague that it's impossible to even understand what would actually suffice for some of these states to be proper age verification. And this is another one of the dangerous arguments that we open up to, and I don't want to, because we're substantially limited, in time today. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but I see some of you in the comments are actually having a very eloquent conversation about data privacy. And I love the fact that you guys are talking to each other and having what I consider to be a great debate. I'm seeing you guys and I'm reading your back and forth here. This is another massive issue, and this is a huge issue with these age verification services. And yes, I understand that some of the states are putting laws in that says that whoever is doing the age verifying needs to secure the data. But I'll tell you something funny. I was reading the headlines yesterday or the day before, and I saw that AT&T just had like the largest cellular phone data breach like in history, and like everyone's calls, messages, everything got out there. And we're talking about AT&T. We're talking about the oldest telecommunication provider in the world. This is another argument, and you're going to hear this argument, and you're going to see it in when we get to the Supreme Court and when we brief it, because ultimately this is another issue that's being completely ignored, and that is the privacy of individuals and what we're really sacrificing here. Because ultimately, when we start going down this path of doing age verification online, we're also saying, okay, every human being. See, it's not just limited. They're creating these laws that every person. Doesn't matter if you're 80 years old or 70-year-old or whatever. If you want to get into whatever website it is that you're into, and this is another thing that terrifies me for the and excuse me, I try not to screw the acronym, but for the LBGQ. See, I always butcher it.
Gotcha.
I always screw the acronym up, but I am horrendously concerned about that community because there are so many people that are still to this day having to live very much in secrecy because of fears of retribution, fears of how the world is going to react to them, and so forth. And this is yet another example of how the government is trampling all over that person's privacy. That person is now going to be, okay, well, I'm going to such and such website, and now I have to go through some third-party service and provide my ID to this third-party service that now knows that I went to a certain site that had a specific type of content. This is dangerous stuff, guys. This is things you got to think of. We have a safety concern here that we owe to the privacy of human beings that are trying to live their lives free of being, persecuted by the government, other people who are, still have different views from another time. Very concerning stuff.
On that note, I know that we are going to take Q&A pretty soon. I just wanted to put a plug for a direct service for sex workers, Pineapple Support. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And I'm plugging them because these are dangerous times we're living in. Online content creators in the adult industry, their livelihoods are on the chopping block. There's immense amounts of stress that people are dealing with as they're trying to anticipate these changes or experiencing them, working with people like Jasmine just to try and keep their business visible and viable. Pineapple Support provides free or discounted therapy with sex worker competent therapists, and they have a backlog of people who have requested help, who need help, and every dollar you donate to them will go towards helping those people getting the the support they need to stay safe and well.
There's an individual who made a comment, and I try to, again, we're going to kind of get into the comments here in a minute, assuming Clara directs us to do that because she's my boss here today. But I do want to point out for an individual in our chat named Jason. Don't know who Jason is, but Jason just made a point that needs to be brought up, and that is the fact that a lot of these age verifications are, quite frankly, lobbying for these laws because guess what? They're making a ton of money. And Jason, that is an incredible point, and I agree with you because when I go to trade shows now, it's incredible. All of a sudden, when I go to a trade show, there's 15 vendors for age verification services with huge, elaborate booths giving away, all sorts of swag and, prizes and all this shit. And Jason, I agree with you. I see a massive conflict of interest there. I see this as a massive problem. And this is not the first time we've seen this in the adult industry. because when the UK was doing this a few years back, I don't know if you guys remember, but the industry got flooded with age verification services. And then when the UK age verification bill failed, snap of a finger, they were all gone. These guys that were running around all the industry shows, being everyone's buddies, shaking everyone's hands and talking about how pro industry they were and stuff. Second the law was gone, it was gone. So Jason, I love your point. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a major issue. It drives me crazy, Jason, and I'm so thankful that you made that point, because it's a discussion that we also need to start having, because these age verification services that everyone is now pouring money into because we have to, what are they doing with that money? Are we actually are we making the problem worse by supporting companies that are using lobbyists and such to push this through? So Jason, your point is spot on. I can't thank you enough for bringing that point up.
I agree too. Like, even though like I do have some clients using them, because obviously the bigger the client, the more the liability. Like, and when you have high volume coming in, you know, we're not equipped to do it in-house, but yeah, it is that catch-22 where it's just kind of like you are you adding to the problem? But business also can't stop. So, you know, it's like, okay, we kind of got to move forward. I don't want to I don't want to not do it either, and have anything, you know, come back on the company. So yeah, it is one of those difficult questions to ask.
Chicken and the egg, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
And I do think now would be a great time to start asking questions if anyone in the crowd did have any. I feel like most of the ones that have been asked already have been really pretty thoroughly answered by everyone in the chat. So
Yeah, I'm well, so if you guys want to try to, start popping in your questions, we'll do our best now to answer them. But meanwhile, I do want to point out that I'm noticing and um I'm recognizing names. I'm not trying to call people out, but I can see that we've got a very good presence from the Woodhill Freedom Foundation today. For those of you that haven't joined, who aren't already supporting it, I am one of the proud lawyers fighting for the Woodhill Freedom Foundation, because they decided to join this fight. And we actually had a meeting this afternoon. Ricky, you don't even know about that yet, but she'll find out about that later. But we had a great meeting today, and we are already planning our strategy for how we intend on briefing this issue. So make sure, guys, that you're paying attention to these organizations that are really, picking this up, because without organizations and people like Ricky and all the people that are supporting that fantastic organization, there really wouldn't be anything. Same thing goes for, Free Speech Coalition. I know some of their board members are here right now. A lot of them are very close friends and are people that I work with on a regular basis. Love you, Liz. I see you there. We've got to support the Free Speech Coalition. Got to make sure that we give these guys the ammunition that they need, because these challenges are expensive and time consuming. Quite honestly, guys, I've been practicing law for, I think, 18 years. This is going to be my first time where I'm heading out to DC to the Supreme Court, and I'll tell you something: the amount of time that it takes to get these arguments together and get this done right, it's even blown me away. So make sure that you guys are supporting these organizations. So that being said, let's start. It looks like the questions are starting to come in. So Clara, why don't you DJ through our questions here?
I think this first one's pretty good. What are the best ways for a new platform to make sure they're satisfying all the new laws?
Oh, that
As
is
an attorney?
that is a phenomenal question. Who decided to make my life miserable today? My God. Well, that's a difficult one, because unfortunately, the laws are different in each state. And the first thing that you really need to do, and I've been telling all my clients this, is you got to get yourself an Excel sheet. The Free Speech Coalition has a web page dedicated to this. Other sites do as well. But you guys have got to get a handle on which states have the enacted laws. It's essentially important that you guys take the state. There's only one state that has actually actively enforced it. That, of course, is the state of Texas, as you guys know. But for those of you that are running a platform, it is very important that you guys understand your options. I started doing these legal impact series a long time ago. These are not about you know, and all the guests, everyone who comes here, nobody's paid. No one's making any money here. We're doing this because we're doing this out of our love for the community. I'm not here to say, you know, I'm not trying to say to all of you, well, you got to hire me or whatever, but I am telling you guys that I encourage you to talk to legal professionals, talk to members in the community to make sure you understand which states are really the dangerous ones right now. When are the effective dates? Like I said, we have one that's just 2 days away from becoming effective here. It's really important that you guys understand what your options are, because as someone correctly pointed out in this chat earlier on, some larger platforms, we're not going to name them, we don't have to do that, have decided that the way to go is to geo-block. That is an option. Geo-blocking a certain state to simply eliminate that particular state as a problem is an option. And, you know, you're going to have different opinions, different feelings that every different website operator is going to have. No one's going to make the same decision. You know, there's going to be different variations, but I encourage you, the person that asked that question, you got to familiarize yourself, understand which are the danger states and what your options are. Whether you end up reaching out to me or whether you reach out to anybody else, you know, legal professional who understands this area of law. Don't go to your, you know, your mother's divorce lawyer. They're not going to know what to tell you. Make sure you're talking to professionals that know it. Also, you can always reach out to organizations like Woodhill and the Free Speech Coalition. They're always happy to give you guys information. So that's my answer to that.
There's another really good one that someone asked. They said maybe it's a dumb question, but is it based on the location the person is browsing from or their citizenship or current address?
No, it's actually based on where they are. It's based on where they're located. So if an individual, another great question, man, I don't know who asked that, but you guys are on fire with the questions. That's a phenomenal question. So, you know, we'll just use Savannah, for example. Let's pretend that Savannah was right now in Oklahoma. I don't think she is, but we're just going to pick on the great state of Oklahoma. If she was in Oklahoma, Oklahoma has a effective age verification statute, and she was trying to access a adult site from the state of Oklahoma, this is where it would kick in, because if the website was giving someone in the state of Oklahoma the ability to access the site, that would be where problematic. Sorry, Savannah. I know you're not in Oklahoma, but I just needed an example.
Someone else asked another question that was kind of similar to the first question. They asked if there was a preferred way for sites to address age verification, i.e. like blocking states, doing, you know, ID verification per person.
Yeah, I mean, there's numerous different ways you can do it. I mean, there's different options. You can geo-block, you can choose to comply. There's some sites that are saying fuck it, and they're saying we're not going to do it. We believe that this is unconstitutional and we're not going to adhere to it. Now, I have to warn you, there's obviously dangers with that, but you know, everybody who's in this industry, and it doesn't matter what facet you're in, it doesn't matter if you're a website operator, it doesn't matter, you know, if you're a sex worker, performer, it doesn't, the list goes on and on. Everybody needs to keep these considerations in mind right now, because it is changing the industry. And you know, if you heard what Savannah said earlier, you know, people are talking about this. People are worried about this. These are legitimate concerns that go all the way from the top of the food chain, from the largest platforms. And, you know, a lot of you are naming the large platforms in the chat. We don't, you know, for purposes of rebroadcasting, I try to stay away from that. But ultimately, all these big platforms, it goes all the way down to the solo performer who might only put up a clip once a month. This applies to everyone. Everybody needs to evaluate this issue from their own perspective. And I'm sure, Savannah, even for you, you know, as a sex worker, you've had to look at this differently now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still sell content. I'm an in-person sex worker, and it's a constant shell game of trying to stay relevant, stay accessible, stay visible, and stay safe. And I'm well established, and I have an enormous amount of privilege, and I see how this plays out for sex workers who are just getting started or don't have access to, you know, the time that they need to like weather these storms. It's really having a major impact on people's welfare.
So it looks like, Clara, if I'm right, I see my friend Kathy from SegPay is here, and Kathy just made an incredible point. She's also on the board of the Free Speech Coalition, and she made a brilliant point that Visa is now requiring merchants to be compliant, and she is spot on. So there's a whole other issue here that for those of you that are actually running a platform and accepting Visa or MasterCard as a payment processor, it doesn't matter what you think of the law. If you don't comply with these state age verification laws, they won't process you. And we've done some other episodes on the credit card industry's stronghold over the industry, and we're going to do more. Of course, thanks to Kathy for pointing, assuming that's Kathy, I think it is. But it's an excellent point, and one of the reasons also why I'm always encouraging people in the industry to make sure, see, it is her, make sure that you're working with companies that are reputable and understand what's going on in the industry. What that means is don't go using some processor that dibble dabbles in adult from time to time. There's a reason why SegPay is at the top of the food chain. They're at the top of the food chain because they've made it a point to protect this industry and to not only be processing for you, but fighting for you guys at the same time. So make sure that you guys are working with these brands and these companies like SegPay and various other companies. Our sponsor, Spank Chain today. I know we got a lot of Spank Chain folks are here today. Make sure that you're working with brands and working with companies that are in this for the good of the industry and not just solely for solo, I don't know, solo dollar. Does that make sense? I don't know. It might have been a bad choice of words. I don't know.
I think this is probably the last question we should let you guys answer, but Jasmine, I think this one might be great for you to answer because you talked about Yoti earlier. She'd said, can we rely on a company like Yoti to know what the rules are state by state? And I think for them specifically, you might be able to answer that question best.
Yeah, you definitely can. And they can also answer questions about what is needed in each country. And that it ended up being a good choice for one of my clients because the team that they had, they're a big company, but ran more as a mom and pop. And there just wasn't anybody with that level of knowledge. And after, weighing the pros and cons of, do we want to build that into create a new little team of that, or do we want to just outsource? And we decided to outsource, and it's very simple. They have a huge team of people just waiting to verify, and it gave a lot of relief to the owner. So
that's awesome. Good for everyone to know.
All right. Well, I guess we got to start wrapping up because we're running out of time, and I try to keep these on time because everyone wants to go back to their jobs and Amazon Prime Day or whatever it is they're doing. By the way, I didn't see any good deals today, but that's just me. First, I do need to give a special thanks to a couple people, Savannah, Jasmine. Can't thank the two of you enough for coming today, and the both of you continue to show courage and strength in this industry, even in the face of all the adversity, and love you guys. The two of you, I've known you both, and I'm so proud of both of you. I can't thank you enough. Got to thank our sponsor, of course, Spank Chain. Thanks for sponsoring today's event, and thank XBiz for being our exclusive media sponsor today. Last but certainly not least, Clara. For those of you who have seen our prior episodes, this is Clara's first episode as the moderator today. I think she did an exceptional job. She's going to be this is going to be a permanent thing, so she's going to be the new face of this. And last but not least, I guess everyone, why don't you guys, Savannah, Jasmine, Clara, why don't you guys share the best way for people who are here today to get a hold of you?
Jasmine, you want to go first?
Yeah, you can reach me at jasmine@jmediagroupinc.com. And I tried to message somebody, but I don't know why it's not working for me. But yeah, email me. Somebody was asking what I do. I do business development, marketing, branding, content creation for models, safe for work and not safe for work. So yeah, just reach out to me and we can chat.
Great. And I can be reached at through contact@newmoonfund.org. That'll be forwarded to me. You can also find me on Twitter, Savannah Sly. Pretty easy. Look forward to chatting. And thanks for having us today.
For me,
And
guys,
you can find, oop,
oh, Claire, you go first.
okay,
You're,
it's fine. I don't need it.
you're more important. You go first.
And you can find me on Twitter at ClaraKitty. And you can also email me at clarakitty@spankchain.com.
For me, guys, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. It's at My Adult Attorney. Same thing if you want to contact me online. My website is myadultattorney.com. You can email me, Corey@silversteinlegal.com. Plenty of ways to get a hold of me. Always happy to answer all of your questions. And of course, for all of you that joined in the audience today, I can't thank you guys enough for being here. On behalf of all of us here, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. We love what we do. We love advocating for this business. And so thank you all for taking the time out of your day to be here today. And I promise we will do another one, right, Clara?
Yes, we promise.